So I just finished this book. Let me look for where it says about the author. Okay, I think this one. So Emily Jane Brontë was the most solitary member of a unique, tightly knit English provincial family. Born in 1819, she shared the parsonage of the town of Haworth, Yorkshire, with her older sister Charlotte, her brother Branwell, her younger sister Anne, and her father, the Reverend Patrick Brontë. All five were poets and writers. All but Branwell would publish at least one book. So her father was a reverend. She was born in a family that they were all writers, all poets. So all five were poets. Fantasy was the Brontë children's one relief from the rigors of religion and the bleakness of life in an impoverished region. They invented a series of imaginary kingdoms and constructed a whole library of journals, stories, poems, and plays around their inhabitants. Emily's special province was a kingdom she called Gondal, whose romantic heroes and exiles owed much to the poems of Byron. Brief stays at several boarding schools were the sum of her experiences outside Haworth until 1842, when she entered a school in Brussels with her sister Charlotte. Well, she had to be almost close to death because she died. So after a year of study and teaching there, they felt qualified to announce the opening of a school in their own home, but could not attract a single pupil. In 1845, Charlotte Brontë came across a manuscript volume of her sister's poems. So her sister Charlotte came across some of her work. She knew at once, she later wrote, that they were not at all like poetry women generally write. They had a peculiar music, wild, melancholy, and elevating. At her sister's urging, Emily's poems, along with Anne's and Charlotte's, were published pseudonymously in 1846. An almost complete silence greeted this volume, but the three sisters... Fucking nosy fuck. But the three sisters, buoyed by the fact of publication, immediately began to write novels. Emily's effort was Wuthering Heights, appearing in 1847. It was treated at first as a lesser work by Charlotte, whose book, Jane Eyre, had already begun published to a great acclaim. Emily Bronte's name did not emerge from behind her pseudonym of Alice Bell until the second edition of her novel appeared in 1850. That's weird. So when she wrote, she would go under a pseudonym, a different name. In the meantime, tragedy had struck the Brontë family. In September 1848, Branwell had succumbed to a life of dissipation. By December, after a brief illness, Emily too was dead. Her sister Anne would die the next year. Wuthering Heights, Emily's only novel, was just beginning to be understood as the wild and singular work of genius that it is. Stronger than a man, wrote Charlotte, simpler than a child, her nature stood alone. That's her sister said about Emily, who wrote this book. I think it's a good book. It's a little slow, but I think it's great writing for sure. Peace.